My wedding day started perfectly. Soft music, white roses, sunlight pouring through the ballroom windows. For a few hours I actually believed I was the luckiest woman alive. My mom cried while helping me into my dress. Dad kept pretending he had allergies every 5 minutes because he refused to admit he was emotional. And honestly, seeing them happy mattered more to me than the wedding itself. Because my parents sacrificed everything for me. Dad worked double shifts for years. Mom cleaned houses when money got tight. They gave me love long before they could give me comfort. Meanwhile, my fiancé Ethan came from money, big money, country club money, private school money, and his mother, Diane, never let my family forget it. "She's sweet," Diane used to say about me, clearly from a different background. Different background, such a polite way to say beneath us. Ethan always brushed it off. That's just how mom talks. Funny thing about red flags, they always sound smaller before marriage. Still, I convinced myself things would improve after the wedding. I truly believed love could balance out disrespect. God, I was so wrong. Because 40 minutes before the reception started, I walked into the ballroom and realized my parents no longer had seats at the main table. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a planner issue maybe, but then I noticed who replaced them. Ethan's cousins, his aunt, his older brother and wife, 9 seats, all taken by his family. Meanwhile, my parents stood awkwardly near the back wall holding their gift bags like unwanted guests. I felt physically sick. "Where are Mom and Dad supposed to sit?" I asked quietly. The wedding coordinator looked nervous immediately. "Mrs. Whitmore requested some changes this morning." Mrs. Whitmore, Diane, of course. I spotted her instantly near the champagne tower laughing with guests. Perfect makeup, perfect pearls, perfect cruelty. I walked toward her slowly. "Why were my parents removed from the table?" She barely looked at me. "Oh," she sighed casually. "We needed seating for immediate family." I stared at her in disbelief. "My parents are immediate family." Diane smiled tightly. "Well, appearances matter at weddings." Then she leaned closer and whispered something that changed everything. "They look poor." Poor. The word echoed in my skull like a gunshot. Before I could respond, Ethan walked over. Thank God, I thought. Surely he'd fix this. Surely he'd defend my parents. Instead, he glanced toward my mom's simple dress, then shrugged slightly. He muttered quietly. "Mom's not wrong." And just like that, something inside me died completely. The strange thing about heartbreak is how fast clarity arrives afterward. 1 second, you're in love. Next second, you're staring at someone wondering how you ever trusted them. Ethan noticed my expression immediately. "Don't make this dramatic," he whispered sharply. Dramatic. Interesting choice of words after humiliating my parents publicly. My mother noticed the tension from across the room and immediately started walking toward us nervously, still smiling, still trying to protect everyone's comfort except her own. "Sweetheart," she whispered gently to me, "it's okay. We can sit anywhere." That almost broke me, because poor people learn to accept disrespect quietly just to avoid embarrassing others. Dad stood behind her completely silent, but I saw his face. Humiliation, pain, embarrassment. And suddenly I stopped caring about the wedding entirely. All I cared about was protecting them. Diane crossed her arms impatiently. "We really need to start the reception." Like this was some tiny inconvenience. Ethan leaned closer. "Please don't ruin today over seating." Over seating? Funny. Because it was never about chairs. It was about dignity, respect, love. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. I was about to marry a man ashamed of where I came from. Then the DJ announced our grand entrance. Everyone started clapping. And suddenly an idea formed in my head. Cold, clear, perfect. I smiled, not a happy smile. The kind of smile people wear right before chaos begins. Ethan relaxed instantly after seeing it. Big mistake. Because he thought silence meant submission. The ballroom doors opened dramatically as music filled the room. Guests applauded while Ethan grabbed my hand confidently. We walked toward the dance floor beneath crystal lights while cameras flashed everywhere. To everyone else, we looked like the perfect couple. Only I knew the marriage had already died. Halfway through the applause, the DJ handed me the microphone for the thank you speech. Tradition. Ethan squeezed my waist gently. "Keep it classy," he whispered. Funny, because classy people don't humiliate waitresses turned parents at weddings. I looked around the room slowly, at my embarrassed parents standing near the back, at Diane sipping champagne smugly, at Ethan smiling confidently beside me, then I spoke calmly. "Before dinner begins," I said softly, "I'd like to thank the two people who actually made this wedding possible." The room quieted immediately. My mother looked confused. Dad froze completely. Ethan's smile weakened slightly. I continued slowly. "My parents spent 22 years sacrificing everything for me." Tears instantly filled Mom's eyes. "They worked extra shifts, skipped vacations, and struggled financially so I could build a better life." The room became completely silent now. Then I looked directly at Diane. "And apparently tonight that sacrifice embarrassed some people." You could hear forks hitting plates. That's how quiet the ballroom became. Ethan grabbed my arm immediately. "Stop," he hissed under his breath. I gently pulled away. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm finally starting." Diane looked horrified now. "Claire," she snapped sharply, "this is inappropriate." I laughed softly into the microphone. "Inappropriate?" Then I pointed toward the main table. "You removed my parents from their seats because they looked poor." Gasps exploded across the ballroom instantly. Guests started whispering everywhere. Ethan's brother literally muttered, "Oh my God." But I wasn't done, not even close. I reached into my wedding clutch calmly and pulled out folded papers. Because 3 weeks earlier I discovered something interesting. Ethan was drowning in debt. Secret debt. Luxury cars. Gambling apps. Hidden loans. And guess who quietly helped cover his financial disasters multiple times? My poor father. The same father Ethan just humiliated publicly. I held up the papers slightly. "Funny thing about appearances," I said calmly. "Sometimes the people pretending to be wealthy are actually surviving because of the people they look down on." Ethan's face went completely white. Diane stood up instantly. "What are you doing?" I looked directly at her. "Telling the truth." Then I handed the documents to Ethan's uncle sitting closest to the stage. His expression changed after the first page immediately. "Oh wow," he whispered. "Exactly. Wow." The ballroom turned into complete chaos within seconds. Guests whispering. Phones recording. People staring openly at Ethan. And honestly, he deserved every second of it. "You insane bitch," he whispered furiously beside me. That insult actually calmed me further. Because men reveal their real character fastest when public image cracks. I smiled politely at the guests. "Since honesty matters tonight," I continued calmly, "I should probably mention the wedding venue deposit bounced twice." Diane gasped loudly. Ethan lunged slightly toward me. "Enough!" But I kept going. My father covered it quietly because he didn't want me embarrassed. Now the entire room stared at my parents differently. Not with pity, with respect. Meanwhile, Ethan looked like he might actually faint. Dad stepped forward finally. "Sweetheart, you don't have to do this." I looked at him gently. "Yes," I whispered. "I really do." Because poor parents spend years protecting their children from shame. Sometimes children need to return the favor. Diane suddenly started crying dramatically. "We welcomed you into this family?" I almost laughed. "Welcomed me? No, they tolerated me while believing I was beneath them. Huge difference." Then Ethan whispered something that sealed his own destruction permanently. "You're ruining your future over this." I stared at him quietly for a moment, then smiled softly. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm saving it." I took off my wedding ring right there on the dance floor. The entire ballroom watched silently. No music, no applause, just shock. Ethan looked panicked now instead of angry. Because public humiliation hits narcissists differently. "You're overreacting," he whispered desperately. There it was again, overreacting. Funny how disrespect becomes small once consequences arrive. I placed the ring carefully beside his champagne glass, then turned toward the guests. "I'm so sorry everyone traveled here tonight," I said calmly, "but I refuse to marry someone ashamed of my family." My mother burst into tears immediately. Dad looked completely stunned, and strangely I felt peaceful, like my body finally stopped fighting reality. Ethan grabbed my wrist suddenly. "We can fix this privately." I pulled my hand away instantly. "No," I replied softly, "because you humiliated them publicly." His expression cracked completely then, not sadness, fear, because deep down he knew everyone in that ballroom just saw the real him. Diane suddenly pointed toward my parents angrily. "They manipulated you?" That sentence made me laugh out loud. My father drove a rusted truck for 12 years to pay my college tuition. Manipulation? No, that was love, real love, something Ethan's family clearly never understood. 2. The wedding planner quietly approached me looking terrified. Should we stop dinner service? Honestly, that question almost made me laugh, because somehow the shrimp appetizers still mattered to these people. I nodded gently. Yes, please cancel everything. Ethan immediately exploded. Do you know how much this wedding cost? Interesting. Not do you know how much I love you. Not please don't leave. Just money, always money. I looked at him calmly. And my parents still paid more. That shut him up instantly. Several guests actually started leaving quietly now. Nobody wanted front row seats to a collapsing marriage anymore. Then Ethan's aunt walked toward my mother unexpectedly and hugged her. You deserved better tonight, she whispered. That moment shocked everyone, especially Diane, because once one person breaks family silence, others usually follow. Suddenly, more relatives started apologizing quietly. Apparently, Diane's behavior embarrassed them for years too, but like most families, everyone stayed silent to keep peace. Cowards. My father finally walked toward me slowly. You sure about this? He asked gently. I looked around the ruined ballroom. At the flowers, the decorations, the shattered fantasy, then back at Ethan. And honestly, I'd never been more sure of anything. By midnight, the wedding was officially canceled. The ballroom looked haunting afterward. Half-empty wine glasses, wilted flowers, broken illusion everywhere. I sat outside near the fountain, still wearing my wedding dress, when Ethan finally approached me alone. For the first time all night, he looked small. You really threw everything away, he said quietly. I stared at him in disbelief. No, I answered softly. You did that the second you agreed with her. He sat beside me heavily. It was just one comment. That sentence proved he still didn't understand. Cruelty always sounds tiny to the person benefiting from it. I looked at him carefully. You know what hurts most? He stayed silent. You watched my parents get humiliated. I paused. And your first instinct was protecting your mother instead of me. Ethan rubbed his face tiredly. She's always been difficult. Interesting. So he knew exactly who Diane was and enabled her anyway. That realization erased the final piece of love I still carried for him. Then he quietly whispered, what am I supposed to tell people now? I almost smiled, because even after everything, his greatest fear remained embarrassment. Not losing me, embarrassment. That told me everything. 6 months later, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Ethan's second engagement. Quick recovery. The bride looked young, very polished, very wealthy. Diane probably approved instantly. I laughed harder than I should have. Meanwhile, my own life became quieter after the canceled wedding. Better too. Dad stopped apologizing for things that were never his fault. Mom smiled more, and slowly, I stopped feeling ashamed of where I came from. One evening, Dad admitted something painful. I always worried rich people would make you forget us someday. That broke my heart completely, because my parents spent years feeling less than around people with more money. I grabbed his hand gently. Nobody who truly loves me could ever make me ashamed of you. He cried immediately. Honestly, that moment felt more meaningful than the entire wedding ever did. Sometimes I still think about Ethan standing frozen in that ballroom while his perfect image collapsed around him. And honestly, I don't regret the announcement at all, because disrespect hidden behind manners is still disrespect. And some people deserve public consequences for public cruelty, especially when they mistake kindness for weakness.